All right. Hello and welcome to Are You Serious? Ways of Being a Serious Writer. I'm Jessica Klimesh. I'm a creative writer, writing coach, and editor. And today we are talking with Margaret Montet. So, Margaret Montet's narratives of place feature music, memoir, culture, and occasionally genealogy. Also a college librarian, Margaret presents dynamic music-centered lectures at lifelong learning venues. Her creative nonfiction can be found in many journals and anthologies. Margaret's publisher, Read Furiously, has published two and a half of her books. Two and a half. Nerd Traveler, which I happen to have right here, and Brooklyn Family Album, which I also happen to have right here. And music lessons is due out sometime in 2026. And you can sign up for Margaret's newsletter at margaretmontet.com. All right, Margaret, I am so glad you could join us. Thank you.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
One of my goals for this YouTube channel, as I told you, is to kind of discuss habits of serious writers, which obviously serious is subjective, but having known you for, I think it's been about 8 years so far, and Margaret and I were in the same MFA program, though she graduated before I did. And we are occasional travel companions as well. And so, having known Margaret for quite a while, and in the context that I know her, I was thinking, well, I think Margaret is a serious writer. So let's see what she thinks. Um, so what, first of all, Margaret, do you consider yourself a serious writer?
Yes, I do. I think that maybe you can't tell this from outside of my head, but inside my head, I'm always thinking about writing and coming up with new ideas or new formats or just new stuff, or how I'm going to work with traditional stuff. So I'm always thinking about writing, and as you can see behind me, I'm always saving books because I might someday write about it. And some of those shelves are the books for certain projects that I revisit. So yeah, I am a serious writer.
Well, I agree. And I do a lot of the same things with, you can't see my bookshelves, but I'm also always thinking, I'm like, am I going to have to refer to this at some point? Or is this going to inspire me in some of my own writing and that kind of thing as well? Um, so that kind of leads into the next thing I want to ask is what do you think makes a serious writer a serious writer?
I think as long as the writer thinks of themselves as serious, not a hobbyist. There's nothing wrong with writing as a hobby, absolutely not. But I think the seriousness comes in when it becomes maybe not your bread and butter. It might not be sustaining you in life, but it's most important to you. Now, I work full time and I have to be thinking about that. And I teach on the side, so I have to be thinking about that. But really, it's the writing that propels me forward.
Yeah, good. I tend to agree with that, with everything you said, from my own experience as well. Even though we have different paths, there's a lot of similarities, I think. Um, what uh when do you think that you first considered yourself to be a serious writer? Was there some sort of catalyst?
I think it was around the time that I started getting things published and I realized, oh, I really like doing this. This is worth spending my time on. I started by writing travel articles. So where to go and what to see when you're there and where to eat and where to stay, that sort of thing. And after a couple years, I got a little tired of that and I wanted to write more literary, longer things, but I still wanted to do travel because I really enjoyed that. So it was around the time I first started getting those articles published, local magazines usually, but every once in a while I pitched to something that was a little bit more known that maybe you could find on Barnes and Noble's shelf. I've been in a couple of those. But gradually I got into the more literary stuff, which is harder to place. And nobody's heard of the journals that I publish in, but that's okay because I write books too. And those are easily obtained. So, yeah. So it was when I first started getting stuff published.
And can I ask about when that was? Like how many years ago?
I think almost 20 years.
Okay. Wow, that's been a while. Very good. And as you heard, Margaret just talked about how her trajectory started with writing travel articles. And if you read Nerd Traveler, which I highly recommend, and I have a little cameo in it, so um, I think I have a speaking part in Nerd Traveler.
I
I have a little,
think you do too.
I have a short mention in Brooklyn Family Album too, but not a speaking part. But but in Nerd Traveler, um, for our listeners or watchers who might be interested in traveling, I just, you take us all over the world essentially. Is there offhand, what are some of the places you take us in Nerd Traveler?
Well, in Nerd Traveler, we go to Concord, Massachusetts, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Barcelona, Spain, Prague in the Czech Republic, um, Cape May Point, which is like next to my hometown, the Aran Islands of Ireland, and I'm cheating. I'm looking. What is this one? Oh, we've been to Philadelphia and those are the ones I remember. I'm not going to cheat and look at the table of contents. I was just looking at my little tabs there for speaking. But Europe mostly and some United States. Oh, LA. That was an important one.
That's right. I
Yeah.
remember that one. Awesome. What would you say are some key like, so I'll back up just slightly because you work full time, and as I know as well, it can be hard to fit in time to write when you have so many other responsibilities, and yet you do obviously. You have two and a half books, and um, and likewise I do. I people are always like, "Oh, you have so much that you're getting published," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I'm also working and doing yada yada yada," and it can be difficult. So I want to ask you, what are some of your kind of key habits or your writing routine or your writing practice that keep you getting this stuff published?
Well, it's difficult when I'm working. And since I work at a college, the busy time, I'm there 12 months a year for now. There's a big blessed event coming in January when I will retire. I will retire. But right now, here's the thing. I have such a hard time writing anything of substance while the semester is going on because I'm busy with the library work and I come home exhausted and I can't resist saying yes to teaching classes. So this semester, I'm teaching two English composition twos. I thought it was safe to take one. I've never taught this before. I taught English Comp 1, but English Comp 2, I always wanted to teach that because that's the one with the research paper in it, and I wanted to be involved in that. And then they actually needed a second course, a second section covered. So I said, well, it's going to be like Groundhog Day. I'm going to be teaching every day and two of the same thing. Right? So man, that tires me out. And it takes a lot of prep because I haven't taught it before. Left to my own devices, sure, I could lead a conversation about a short story, but I can't make that last for an hour and 15 minutes, especially if the students don't feel like discussing a short story that day, which has happened. So, yeah, so I need to prep and have all kinds of stuff ready to go. So, yeah, I haven't been writing much at all. I have ideas, but all I can do is write notes. The other thing is, I do a lot of lectures on topics similar to or exactly like my writing topics. So, I have to prep those things. I haven't been pitching any new topics. I've been just relying on what I already have and saying, oh, here's what I can offer so that I don't have to prep much, but I have to practice before I show up at the place. Even if I've done the talk 15 times, I still have to practice. So that takes a lot of time. I love it all, and it all informs my writing because a lot of times maybe I'm talking about a place in my writing, but I want to refer to literature in some way or music or whatever. Like when I went to Prague, you can't really write about Prague without writing about Kafka or mentioning him and knowing what in the world you're talking about? So I have found that all the stuff I like to do kind of fits together. So while I'm not generating reams and reams of text right now, when that blessed event happens and I'm retired, I'm going to be writing a lot because there's a lot stored up and a lot of notes. So, mm, so that's kind of how I do it. But when I'm not so busy, like in the summer or Christmas break or whenever I might have some time, I love books that have prompts in them. And I like to follow those prompts. I'll go through the same book multiple times because I'll think of something new each time I read that prompt. So that keeps me writing and just reading about writing or reading about my favorite authors. Those kind of things get me in that mindset.
What are you reading right now?
Oh, I just started Elizabeth Gilbert's All the Way to the River.
Oh, okay.
I just like her reading so much, or her writing, but I like reading her writing so much. It's got layers. And this one's a very personal book. I've only gotten a few pages in, and I'm reading this lovely biography of the Washingtons
Oh,
because I'm itching to go to Mount Vernon. I have an idea for an essay, and I thought, well, I should get some background on the people. I know my American history pretty well, but let me learn about George and Martha. That will inform this essay. So I've been reading that, but I started it before the semester started, and now I've kind of stalled. I was reading a chapter a day, and now, no, I'm lucky if I get a chapter a week and what's most important about all this is I'm not I'm not punishing myself for not getting to the writing or the reading because it's just the way it is. And yeah, I'm looking forward to retiring and I can just do what I want. But I know there's going to be stuff happening. Oh, the dogs have to go out for a walk. Oh, I have to fix this thing. Or, oh, I have to contact this person. Or, oh, I have a doctor's appointment, which requires a follow up. And oh, my tooth. All that stuff's going to be going on. So it's not like I'm just going to be frolicking in my writing. There's always stuff. There's
Right.
always something.
There is always something. I am struck by, you're talking about research before you go to a place, and I know you talk about this in Nerd Traveler too. Um, and it's funny, I think, because you and I are kind of like opposite writers. Um, like, I don't necessarily need to do research for my stories, which tend to be a little, have elements of magical realism and, you know, suspend reality in some way where you're kind of completely in the reality. Um, have you dabbled in fiction before?
No, because it's funny because I had a cool idea for something that's a story from my family that most people don't know about, even in my family. And I thought, oh, that's such a story. I wonder if I could fictionalize that. And and I took one of those video courses just to see if I could write fiction. And no, the idea of creating whole people and putting them in actual places, whether it's magical realism or not, but just, making them real. I just don't do it. I have to be in reality. However, there is an anthology coming out, I think in October from my publisher. They do anthologies of New Jersey topics and New Jersey writers, and this will be their third, I think. And I always managed to get an essay in there, but this time I thought I would be funny and do an auto fiction. And I was inspired by Agatha Christie, who well, now there's the Thursday Murder Club movie on Netflix too. But the idea of having a bunch of people getting together and trying to solve murders or telling stories of murders. I just liked that a lot. Like that, it's kind of like a book club where you get together and you talk about something. Well, so I wrote a piece of auto fiction because all the characters are based on neighbors that I have around this house or have had in the past. And they all come together in my house during a blizzard, which really happened in 2010. There was this huge blizzard. Nobody came to visit me, but it was, I don't know, 30 inches of snow, which is unheard of for down the shore. And I assigned each character, I changed their names, by the way, but I assigned each character one of my travel mishap stories. So we sit around and we tell travel mishaps. But, that wasn't enough. I had to get in there and come up with some uh, in between the stories matter. And that was so hard for me, just trying to keep to the character. I could create the character when I was getting them ready to tell a story. But when I was trying to show them interacting in my living room, that was really hard. So, but it was fun and it's going to be published in this next anthology. And I think it's going to be funny. A lot of the people who know me as a nonfiction writer are going to be really surprised by this because obviously it's not true. It can't be. All these people wouldn't have been here at the same time. Because if I call them a next door neighbor, well, I have like 7 next door neighbors. They can't all be next door, right?
Right.
So that's going to be funny, but I don't have any desire to do that again. I just thought it'd be a fun experiment and it would work with this. And I have all these stories of things that have gone wrong while traveling. So anyway,
I look forward to reading that. So when does that anthology come out?
I think it's October.
Okay. Of
I
this
think that they've they've been doing a lot. My publisher's been doing a lot of stuff. They just announced this week that they're going to start doing audiobooks.
Oh,
Yeah, and all these new things. And so the news of the anthology for now has been kind of buried because all this other stuff is happening. But I'm sure when it comes out in October, they'll advertise it.
Can you remind our listeners of who your publisher is?
They are Read Furiously. That's their name. Their website is readfuriously.com, and they're local to me. They're in West Trenton, New Jersey. And if I order a bunch of books for an event, they show up at my porch without the benefit of UPS or US Mail or any of that. They just ride by and put these things on my porch. So they're very good. And I have to tell you, you always have dreams of being published by one of the biggies, but the smaller publishers really do take care of you. So
That's great. That's great.
yeah.
Um, so how do you personally study the craft of writing? And maybe you want to tell us what you consider to be craft. I think different people have maybe slightly different definitions of it.
Well, to me, craft is making sentences and putting them together in an interesting way and putting those together into a paragraph and then a page, and then ending up with, in my case, an essay. So I like to read about writing. It sounds silly, but I really do like to read about writing. And I have books that are more philosophical about writing. And I have books, like I said, I love to do prompts. So I have books about prompts and I do the prompts and exercises. And I just have a lot of fun with that. And that's kind of what I do. But I also keep an eye on all of the webinars and online courses that show up. And there are a lot that I would want to take, but I have to keep it down to a minimum, because it gets expensive really quick. But anything new coming out, I'll that has to do with nonfiction, I'll probably sign up for it. It's really hard to resist. So I did recently. It was an hour. No, it was longer than an hour. It was 2 hours on card decks. A
Oh,
lot of books, different kinds of books are coming out, not just with a binding, but as cards, as individual cards all together. And I thought, well, I have a book that I'm working on. It's actually kind of finished. I'm just working on the illustrations. That would work. So my publisher doesn't know yet, but I'm going to send them an actual book proposal, which I haven't done in a while. And I'm going to include, this could be a book or a card deck or both and see what they say.
interesting.
Yeah, so that was interesting to me. And I kind of remember I took another short, I forget what it was, but last summer, just a year ago, exactly a year ago, I was in Italy. I signed up for a writing workshop in Siena. It was maybe 4 days, and we stayed at a beautiful villa. So I lengthened the trip on either side and stayed in the cheapest possible hotels I could find with a single bed. I do require my own bathroom because I'm not walking down the hall in my pajamas, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that was fantastic. The workshop was great. I learned from other people. I learned from the leader and got lots of feedback on my own writing. And I ate lots of pizza and it was really fun. But also, those places that I went before and after, I went to Pisa and Florence finally, and Lucca. And each one of those could have its own essay by me. Definitely Lucca. I've already written that one. But yeah, it just informs me, you know, and it gives me more ideas. But the writing workshop helped me with craft and watching what other people do too.
Yeah,
That
I think
helps.
I think, yeah, looking at other people's work to me is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, Looking at my notes real quick. Just a couple more questions. So, what advice do you have for writers in general, but maybe specifically for writers of nonfiction?
Okay. In general, it's what I said before about not expecting your writing to pay your way. Keep that day job, whether it's part-time or full-time, and if you get paid for any writing, that's great, but that's frosting on the cake as far as I'm concerned. That way it doesn't get to be a pain, and it doesn't become a thing. It's still enjoyable, and you do it when you can, and that's a treat. That's my one big advice. But for nonfiction writing, and Jessica doesn't know that I'm working on, I don't know. I'm my sabbatical, I had a sabbatical last year. That's how I got away to Italy during the school year. Um, my sabbatical project was to write a book about research for creative writers. And I'm still fussing about the title. It sounds boring, and it's not boring. It's fun and interesting. And it's not just for nonfiction, it's for fiction and poets and whatever. And one of the things that I recommend, my very first chapter is libraries and librarians. To go to the library and talk to the reference librarian, find out if there's a person who specializes in your area. If it's nonfiction, it might not be travel writing, but maybe there's somebody who specializes in Italian history or something like that, find that out. And whether it's a public library, a college library, whatever kind of library, browse the reference area, have the librarian show you neat books. And some of the examples I use in my book are, and I was thinking of fiction writers, even though for nonfiction too, look for books about names. Like if you need to name your characters, you can find all different kinds of name books, saints and Irish names and Jewish names and all kinds of names. And do they have a job or are they studying for a job? You could look at the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is also online, but you'll find a hard copy in the library. But we have in my library, just wandered over there and took a picture of the shelf for my presentation, um, encyclopedias of different careers, and they'll tell you what kind of education, what kind of skills a person will need to be a rocket scientist or a veterinarian, whatever it is. You can look it up, and that'll give your character more depth. If they can mention, oh yeah, when I was at vet school, blah blah blah, you know. So look in the library. My very favorite reference tool, and this is for anybody, and I use it a lot. I've been using it lately for a project. It's called the American Decades series. And most libraries that I've interacted with have had this series. You can go and find the the book, the volume for a certain decade. So 1940s, what was going on? Well, we know World War II, but what were the famous songs of that time? What movies were going on? What, I mean, the war. But there's stuff that happened because of the war. I did a really good research paper in high school, like the effects of World War II on things. Like what kind of clothes were they wearing? And why were women's skirts so narrow? Well, because you couldn't have fabric, lots of fabric to make your clothes. Even men's jackets had to be a certain way, not the stylish way, because there wasn't fabric to go around, right? So all that stuff. What are the big news stories? Everything that happened in that decade. And it goes year by year. So if you only care about 1944, you can look up 1944. That works for me. I find out all kinds of things that might have been going on during the time I'm talking about. But for fiction or poetry, you'll know, oh, this probably affected my character, this thing that happened. So the idea of doing research, it doesn't sound appealing to most people. I understand that and I don't take it personally, but it's so worthwhile. So go to the library, talk to the librarian, ask them what they've got, ask them if they know of another library that might even specialize in that area. There might be an archives. I have another chapter, archives and archivists, because I ended up going to a few of them for Brooklyn family album. I went to the Brooklyn archives and found some great stuff that helped me make sense of what I wanted to write.
Yeah, I was
That's a
just
long answer, but there you go.
no, that's okay. No, as you were talking, I was thinking of Brooklyn Family Album because you describe your research process in there, and it is fascinating. Like it is as a reader, I'm like right there, and I'm like, I'm going to the library, I'm going to these cemeteries, I'm going to Coney Island. You go to Coney Island, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And all these places that you're going with the reader is going with you, and it 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 makes it makes research really interesting to have it in this form. So
And
it's
it's not cut and dried either. In Brooklyn Family Album, I go to the Center for Brooklyn History, is its name, and I talk to the archivist. This is how you do it. You talk to the archivist before you go by email, and they have time to wrangle up some books for you that will be useful. And then you go there and they pull their pile of books for you, sit them on the table, and they give you a little cradle to put the book in so you don't mess up the binding. And I was looking up, I was picturing my mother. This all was inspired by my mother and her family. That's where they lived for a couple generations. And by the time I was born, they'd all left Brooklyn. So I never went there except for a funeral. And I think when I was real little, we did go to Coney Island, but I don't have any strong memories from it. So I had to do all research because they're all gone now. Like not only did they leave Brooklyn, they died too, you know, by
right.
this date. So I didn't really have anybody to ask. So I went to this archives and I wanted to know two things. Where might my grandfather's post office had been? Because he was a mail carrier all through the Depression and when my mother was growing up. And she always told stories about the merchants on his route giving him things for the kids. There were 5 kids. And I just thought that was really neat. But where did he have to commute somewhere? So I didn't really get an answer to that, but I saw where the post offices were and one that was pretty close to their house. So I thought, that's probably it. I'm not going to pretend that that is it, but I said in the book that I think that's where it was. And the other was my mother always talked about going to Prospect Park. Beautiful park, partially the same people who designed Central Park in New York, right? So beautiful park, um, rolling lawns and little buildings and things. And they always told me, my parents always told me that they met ice skating. And I always assumed that they went to a place like I went when I was a kid, only because of peer pressure, because I really did not like ice skating. I did not feel safe and secure on skates on ice, and I fell a lot. Worse for me was roller skating. But anyway, ice skating, I just pictured they had a rink and they skated in circles like we did. And then one day I was in Brooklyn and I was planning a trip to the Botanic Gardens or the museum or something. And I looked on the map and there's Prospect Park with an ice skating center in it. And I thought, well, that's where they probably were. So I went and looked at it. It looked really modern. And I thought, oh, I can't picture them here. So this, but I turned around and there was a beautiful lake. And I thought, oh, that's got to be it. And I just stared at it. I just stood there and stared at it. My father was in the Coast Guard and they called it Liberty, where they could, walk around wherever they were, go visit places. So he would have found some kind of public transportation, gotten himself to this ice skating place. He was pretty good at it. I did not inherit that talent. And he must have met my mother, who would have been there with her sisters or her friends or both. And the rest is history. But I was so thrilled to figure that out. But back to the archives. How did she get, like, her mommy and daddy didn't drive her in the car? I know that. So, how did she get from her house? So, it ended up, I couldn't get a solid answer to that because it would depend, you know, if she was going to the ice skating end of Prospect Park or a different part, or if she's stopping by her friend's house and they're over there, maybe there's a bus, and over here you have to take the streetcar, and over here there might have been a subway. So that's what I found out. It's depend where you're starting and ending is what public transportation you would have taken. So I was perfectly happy with that answer, even though I was hoping for exactly which car she would have used on the subway.
Right,
No,
right.
you're not going to get that.
Well, that's very interesting. And this has been wonderful chatting with you, Margaret. Is there any last things that you want to leave our listeners, watchers with before we go?
Well, we mentioned my half a book. The
Yes.
book is actually whole and it's in manuscript.
Okay.
But it's like I'm expecting it. It's going to be published in 2026. It's called Music Lessons,
Mhm.
and it started during the pandemic when I couldn't travel, and I decided, oh, I'm just going to write about music because that's my favorite thing. And so I started writing music things, and then as we could travel a little bit more, then I got some travel-y kind of things in there. But what I kept being reminded of writing about music in different ways was how much being involved in music since I was 10 years old, how that shaped me. So all these little soft skills that you get, and they talk about them in corporate life and even academic life. Oh, you have to know how to talk to people. Have to know how to lead a group and all this kind of stuff. Well, I learned all that as a musician. I played the clarinet, so you don't get a whole lot of chance to be a concert. Well, you could be a concert master if you're good, but you don't get a chance to conduct. But if you're in string, no, woodwind quintet, you actually conduct the group with your clarinet. So I had to learn how to do that, you know, and just all these soft skills. So I ended up writing teeny weeny essays in front of each big essay about some aspect of music. So I thought, these are music lessons. I'm going to call the book Music Lessons.
I love that title for that. I remember you describing that probably, when was the idea? Maybe a few years ago. And I remember it just sounded very fascinating to me. And of course, I enjoy your writing very much. So I can't wait for music lessons to be a
Yeah,
full book and not just a half book.
an expected book.
An expected book for it to be born.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Margaret, for agreeing to be interviewed for this, and I'm hoping that our listeners, have also gotten something out of this. And um, for the people out there listening and watching, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and please share this video, like it, comment, leave some thoughts to Margaret about her books, and then go get her books. Go buy them and read them because they're very good.
Thank you, Jessica. This was fun.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.
Okay.